The night of my husband's company dinner was supposed to be special. I spent hours getting ready, choosing a simple dress and practicing polite smiles in the mirror. I knew his coworkers were important people, and I wanted to make a good impression, even though I often felt out of place around them. And people in designer suits laughed confidently. I stayed close to my husband, hoping his presence would make me feel secure, but he seemed distracted, already blending into his professional world. At first, the conversations were harmless. People asked where I worked and what I did. When I told them I had left my job to support my husband's career and focus on our home, their smiles became thin and judgmental. I felt the air around me change. One of his senior colleagues laughed lightly and said, "So you're just nothing right now." Others chuckled as if it were a joke. My face burned, but I forced a polite smile, not wanting to cause a scene. Another woman leaned in and added, "It must be nice living off someone else's success this time." The laughter was louder. I looked at my husband, expecting him to defend me, but he just laughed awkwardly and took a sip of his drink. In that moment, I felt invisible. Years of sacrifice, moving cities, giving up my own dreams, all felt worthless. I wanted to disappear under the table as the word loser was casually thrown into the conversation like it meant nothing. I excused myself and went to the restroom, locking myself in a stall. I stared at my reflection, trying not to cry. I asked myself how I had allowed my life to shrink so much that others could define my worth so easily. When I returned to the table, no one noticed. The conversation had moved on, and I sat quietly, listening to people brag about promotions and bonuses. My husband didn't even look at me once. That night, the drive home was silent. I waited for an apology, an explanation, anything. Instead, he said I was being too sensitive and that I should learn how to take a joke. But each application reminded me that I was capable of more than being someone's shadow. Eventually, I got a call for an interview, then another. Slowly, opportunities opened up. I started working again, learning new skills, and rebuilding the confidence I had lost. My husband noticed the change. I was less available, more focused, and no longer seeking his approval. Our conversations became tense, especially when I started earning my own money. Months later, his company hosted another event. This time, I didn't go as his insecure wife. I went as myself, confident and independent, wearing a smile that came from within. When his coworkers asked what I did, I told them calmly about my job and my projects. The same people who laughed before now nodded with respect, some even impressed. The woman who once mocked me avoided eye contact. The man who called me a loser suddenly praised my ambition. Their approval no longer mattered, but the irony felt satisfying. My husband stood beside me, quieter than usual. I could tell he felt the distance growing between us, a distance created by his silence when I needed him most. Later that night, he apologized, not just for the dinner, but for years of taking me for granted. I listened, but I didn't rush to forgive. I had learned something important. Being humiliated broke me for a moment, but it also showed me my strength. I was never a loser. I just needed to remember who I was.